Welcome to Talking Jazz. My guest today is saxophonist and composer, arranger, so much more, Karolina Strassmayer. And she's talking to me from her home in Cologne, where she resides as part of the WDR big band, one of the musicians. So welcome, Karolina.
Thank you, Monika. Happy to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you. I wanted to have a chance to talk to you for such a long time. So I'm so glad we made this happen. Just even though you should be a household name everywhere, but let's make sure everybody gets to know you and knows what you're doing. Give us the 5-minute elevator or 3.5-minute elevator synopsis of Karolina, the lead alto player in the WDR big band. How did you get there?
Well, I started out in a very small village in the Austrian Alps. And of course, as you can imagine, jazz was not really in my world at all until I was 16 years old, and one morning on my way to school, I was commuting. A friend of mine she brought a big bag of tapes that her older sister wanted to get rid of. And she said, well, I took a listen, but this is like horrible doodling. I don't want it. So she kind of dumped the big bag of tapes into my lap. And I thought, okay, I have an hour on the train. I will give it a chance. So I picked a tape and it said, Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. And, me being the young girl from Steiermark, Bad Mitterndorf, had no idea what Kind of Blue was, and I had no idea who Miles Davis was. I just put the tape in, I pressed play, and the train started moving. And I remember just being completely mesmerized and electrified by what I heard. I had no idea what it was. I just knew this is what I have to do. So with that tape, I went to my grandfather. I come from a musical family, but classical music and folk music. So my grandfather listened to the tape, and after a couple of minutes, he pressed stop and he said, I think that's jazz. So, that was the beginning. And then further research revealed that what I heard was the alto saxophone of Cannonball Adderley. That's what did it for me. And so, of course, I had to have one of those. I sold my moped and traded it in for a saxophone and had some lessons. I studied in Graz at the university there, which has a wonderful jazz education department there. And I graduated there and then went to New York, studied at the New School. And I really wanted to just stay for one semester in New York. I ended up staying over 15 years. And those 15 years in New York were really very, very transformative, for me. And I had a chance to learn and grow and stretch and just really push against my boundaries and just take it all in. And I'm so ever grateful for that experience. And then in 2004, I joined the WDR big band in Cologne. And since then, I have been a member. I was the first woman in the band, which is unfortunate that there were not any other women before, but it has to happen at some point, right? And in 2004, it did. And here I am 18 years later, currently on sabbatical, but I'm still a member of the band.
I love that story. That's such a great story, especially trading the moped for a saxophone.
Talk about a major life decision, right?
That is a major life decision and a major lesson. I'm not sure I would have traded my moped at the time. We're going to listen to some music, and of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the subject you just raised. But Speak Your Truth is our first tune that we're going to listen to, and it's from an upcoming album that's not even released yet, a trio album, chordless trio album. Give us a glimpse into this tune, what to focus on, what to listen to. What are we speaking our truth about?
The title really speaks to the place that I find myself in life these days, which is a deep desire to really speak from my depth, musically speaking, and also, literally speaking. That music has put me on this beautiful journey in which I get to explore what that is, to really explore what it is that moves me and moves me forward in life and pushes me beyond my comfort zone. This album and this particular tune is really, pays homage to that force in all of us that makes us do that, makes us aspire to that, to finding our truth and then having the courage to speak it. And this particular tune is actually a duo with my husband, Jory Monlak, who is a drummer. And we're just improvising freely and just another attempt in speaking our truth.
I think that's the one big lesson that most of us took about these last few years, how important it is to find yourself and to use your time in a way that, you're not trying to and pretending to be something else, but the most special thing that you can share is share who you are. So how cool and how cool you get to do that. I was stuck with a guitar playing husband.
Oh, that's not bad.
It was not bad at all, which was lucky. I was so happy I had another musician in the household, so we could at least do something together.
Yes, I mean that's what moved us through the whole pandemic period, where we couldn't perform with other people or even play with other people for so long. And so being able to play music at home was a real gift that we really cultivated during that time.
I agree. And how fun. Well, let's have a listen. So this is the duo of my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer, with her husband on drums, Jory Monlak, and it's called Speak Your Truth from the album Speak Your Truth, to be released early next year. That was Speak Your Truth from the upcoming album Speak Your Truth. And this is a duet of my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer on saxophone, and with her husband, Jory Monlak, on the drums. We're going to dive deeper in new music, and we talked about expressing yourself, but I actually wanted to touch on a different thing, because we talked also earlier about your position in the WDR big band, and you're playing the flute on this one. And as a saxophone player, of course, you have to double and have all these skills. But being a member of a repertoire big band with guests all the time, what are the most important skills you think somebody needs to have to really do the job in a big band like that?
Well, just like instrumentally speaking, of course, sight reading is very important in a job like that, because this is what we do all the time, and we have to be quick on our feet in reading stuff. We're always confronted with new music. Then, of course, as you said, doubles for the saxophone players are very important because we really play, anything piccolo, clarinet, soprano, bass clarinet, alto, all those things. And the great arrangers and composers that work with the WDR big band, they like to utilize all these different sounds, which is really amazing because it's, it really expands the soundscape of a big band so tremendously. Mm-hmm. So even though for us it means a lot of maintenance work on all these different instruments, but it also is very rewarding because you get to express different things on these instruments, and you get to create different moods and sounds that maybe in a more traditional orchestration are not as accessible. And then, of course, you have to be a team player, but you also have to be a soloist, which is actually really one of the most interesting parts about this gig, is that I am part of something bigger. And how it is when the big band really starts to roar and rumble. It's a beautiful thing. And you're part of this thing, this big, I don't know what to call it, this animal, this big band animal. And then you get to step out and say your piece. And this sort of, oscillating between those two things is something very exciting, but also it's also definitely also challenging. And then another thing that is important about playing with the WDR big band is a certain degree of versatility musically, stylistically, because we play, 1 week we'll play with a group of Indian musicians or Moroccan musicians. And then the next week we play with John Clayton. And so the spectrum of styles and kinds of music that we play is so broad. And again, that's what keeps it exciting, but it's also what makes it very challenging, because in some styles, I feel more at home and more at ease, and others are more difficult to make my own.
Yeah, and that's something to realize. It's a totally different skill than being a band leader and doing all your own things to have. I always wonder as a doubler, how do you decide today, I'm going to practice the flute, or no, let's do a little bit of bass clarinet. Do you have like a plan for that?
A lottery? No. It just in the daily rehearsal, we get to play it so much that actually already goes a long way as far as just staying in the game. And then, of course, the challenge about doubles is, you could be practicing the flute in the morning with a fresh embouchure and just be totally happy and sounding like a bird, and being totally excited about the sound and everything. And then you play saxophone for 3 hours, and then you have to play 3 notes on the flute. And of course, the embouchure is not as readily available as it was just in the morning. So it is that back and forth that over time becomes easier, because you just get used to switching. But it remains a challenge. I won't lie.
Well, and that's something to realize too. This extensive playing, you guys, that's your job. You go in every day and you play for hours, not an occasional gig or something. Now that we talked so much about the big band, let's not hear the big band and hear your improvised freely, but we're going to hear you on the flute, do just the opposite, have the freedom of saying, I don't have to cater to a specific style or sight reading today. I'm going to play the flute the way I want to and interact the way I want to with, I guess, David Friedman in this case.
Yeah, but this particular recording was one of the few live concerts we had during the pandemic. And we thought, okay, we got David Friedman, we got Hans Klawischnik, Jory and me getting together. Let's just record it. And I'm so happy we did, because it was so much spontaneous music. We only played 3 compositions of mine, and the rest was really free improvisation. And the tune New Beginnings is one of those free improvisations where I just started playing on the alto flute all by myself. And then at some point, Hans Klawischnik came in on the bass, and then Jory joined, and it was really just, completely free improvisation. I'm so happy that this musical journey has taken me to a place where I can be fearless and can just start playing and see what happens and not feel like I have to propel something or the music forward. I have to feel like it's a burden. I have to make something happen. I felt these things early on in my career, always like, okay, gotta play a solo now. To be at this point where I can really let the music come to me and interact in a way with other musicians that is joyful, free, that is a very good place to find myself in.
I love that, thinking about fearless. So this is the fearless approach, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, opening yourself up to this free interaction takes this fearless attitude. So let's have a listen to this wonderful live performance of New Beginnings, which is on the album Quiet Fortitude, and Hans Klawischnik on bass with Rory Mondleg on the drums. That was New Beginnings from the live album Quiet Fortitude. And it featured my guest today, of course, Karolina Strassmayer on the flute, on the alto flute, Hans Klawischnik on the bass. We talked about free improvisation and big band. You have an upcoming album, and I love the term that you used. You call it your soul miners. You're mining what's in the soul and sharing it out. And you have this group together with your husband that you call Claro. So after we talked about big band playing, talk a little bit about band leading and doing something totally different with that project. How do you approach it, especially with a partner? You know, do you divide up who's going to write the tunes, or who's going to book the gigs, or how do you divide it up?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. We actually do have a very clear division of labor here. I write all the songs. I'm sort of the musical director, so to speak. Dory, you know, he's really great in shaping the music, but he doesn't compose or write arrangements, but he's really great in shaping the music and taking it different places. But in terms of the division of labor, really he takes care of the logistics of booking and hiring musicians. And I take care of the website and, you know, press text and photos and stuff like that. So it's a real business we run together, a real collaboration. And also, of course, this is only one aspect of it, but to really share this musical, emotional, spiritual experience is really quite special with the person that I love most. You know, it's really a gift that we can do this together. We've been playing music together really since 2000, which is when we met. So it's quite a long time, and we've released quite a few albums together. Of course, sometimes it's like, you know, when you're at home eating breakfast and it's like, oh, did you write that email? Oh, did you update the website? Oh, did you call that guy? So, you know, sometimes it can be pretty intense because this is everywhere in our life, you know, and which is great. But then to have these shared moments, these shared experiences, traveling together, going places, playing with all these different musicians. Dory and I are sort of the core of the group, and then we like to bring in different musicians like David Friedman, like Rainer Böhm, like Billy Test, like Hans Klawischnik, to complement the group or to make us a quartet, basically. Also, you mentioned, you know, in reference to the big band, the quartet for me is really a way to explore the looser kind of music making, which I've come to really, really love. Mm-hmm. I love playing great compositions and great arrangements and in a very structured way, like we do it in the big band. When I write tunes, I like to keep them as simple as possible. I like them to be interesting, but I don't necessarily look for complexity in my compositions. I like it when the complexity then can arise from the improvisation. Mm-hmm. So I like to write tunes that basically give us a framework and some harmonic context, and that then we can be fairly loose and free with that, and that people are not stuck on the paper. That is really sort of a opposite of what the big band really requires. So I'm very happy to have both of these situations in my life.
Balance is a good thing. So for this one, we got, of course, David Friedman, who starts out on the vibraphone. So in Calling for You, I assume it's one of your tunes. Is that one of the looser framework?
Again, it is a completely free improvisation.
Completely free.
But when we improvise freely, or I should say, when I improvise freely, I always look for structure. It's just made up spontaneously. I still love to play very melodically and have a very clear development of things, even when it's done spontaneously. And Calling for You, I have a very special connection to this recording, because to me it illustrates a place that I have come to in my musical growth, where I can really relax and can let things come to me. And I can really let go of the need to prove myself, which is something that I've struggled with for many years. coming up as a young woman in jazz, where I felt for so long that I have to prove that I have earned my place here in this band or in this jazz scene. Or gradually over the years, I've been able to let go more and more of that. And to me, this tune, Calling for You, really represents a place that I have arrived at where I feel like I have liberated myself from this urge to prove myself. And that is something that really gives me great satisfaction, that I have come to this place. And not only that, it's just so much more fun to play music like that, when you can just let things take their course. And I think Calling for You is a good example of this place that I find myself now.
That's really special. I'm not going to add anything to that. So let's just have a listen. So this is Calling for You from the album Speak Your Truth, to be released soon, and featuring my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer, also David Friedman on the vibraphone, and Rory Mondlake on the drums. That was Calling for You from the upcoming album Speak Your Truth, featuring my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer. And Karolina, in her big job or real job, is the second alto saxophone player, which is nevertheless just as important. This year, you are on a sabbatical and you're trying out some new ventures. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing this year.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, I've been in the big band for 17 years or 18 years now. At first, not going to rehearsal every day was kind of awkward. The big band has been so much part of the fabric of my life. So I really had to, at first, just learn how to slow down and letting, maybe over the course of this year, really just letting things develop, as opposed to just sort of like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now? One thing that I've been carrying with me, or a desire that I've been feeling the last few years, is really to become active in the empowerment of women in jazz. And now that I have a little more time, I have developed a course which I'm giving now online. And I also teach at the Folkwang University in Essen, and I also do mentoring for women there and teach the empowerment course there. And this is something that I have become incredibly passionate about, being able to make a difference in that way. It's funny because it comes really almost as a little bit of a surprise to me that I'm doing this, because for so many years I was like, okay, please leave me alone. Don't ask me, well, how is it to be the only woman in the WDR big band? I just did not want to deal with the woman topic. And I've always tried to skirt the issue. But over the years, I have realized that apart from just being a member of the WDR big band and the visibility that comes with that, that is one thing. It does make a difference in the world, but I want to be more active, not only through my musical contributions, but really addressing certain topics with women. And it is really, young women still struggle with a lot of the same issues that I struggled with. I feel I can really, just by sharing my experience, make a difference. And that is incredibly rewarding. And I am going to keep going and give it everything I've got, because I want to know what our music, what jazz will look like when more and more women really show up as women, as we are, not feeling the pressure of conforming to a certain aesthetic and musically, but really coming into our own and coming into our power. And this is what my course is called. It's Come Into Your Power. I'm really burning for this. I'm really on fire. So I love having the opportunity to do this and to share what I know.
And it's so important that you are doing this, and a lot of the role models that we have, like Terrell Carrington, Ingrid Jensen, are moving in that same direction, speaking out and empowering others. And one of the things, we found in our recent publication, Jazz and Gender on Routledge, the theme that comes over and over is the importance of role models, to see somebody like you doing something that you would like to do, and then it becomes achievable. What you do is so important and so much appreciated. And also the other point of, there's equality, and as one of my friends put it so well, equality does not mean sameness. So what's going to happen if we share this music equally?
I like that. Equality is not sameness.
My favorite quote in the world. All right, but in this duo interaction, we have quite a bit of equality, but not sameness, right? In quiet fortitude. And this is another duet with David Friedman on the vibraphone, correct?
Yes, David on the vibraphone, and this is an actual composition. This is not a free piece, it's an actual composition. And it's just, playing with David is such an adventure, because he takes these, well, I don't know, whatever, how long, 16 bars, the tune is long, or maybe 24 bars, I don't even remember right now. He is really a master in creating on the spot. And he's what we were talking about before, he's a really fearless improviser. He knows how to get in the flow. He knows how to play without resisting and just going with an idea. And for me, it was just a real joy to be able to play this with him and record it with him.
Well, it's a joy to listen to it too. So let's do it. So this is Quiet Fortitude, and this is from the title track from the recently released album, Quiet Fortitude. Here we go. That was Quiet Fortitude, the title track from the album Quiet Fortitude, which was recently released. You heard my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer, in a duet with vibraphonist David Friedman. And we talked about a lot of topics, from playing in big bands, playing free compositions, and of course, being a woman in a male-dominated domain, and what it takes and what is needed right now in this landscape. And one thing you mentioned is that you did a lot of firsts. You were the first woman in one of these radio big bands, which are the coveted, really few full-time jobs for jazz musicians. Yes. And it's been a huge discussion. There's, I believe, 4 big bands in Germany. And of course, there's the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, which would be about a equivalent of full-time jobs. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're still one of the 1 or 2 or 3 landscape. Is there a movement towards change into that makeup, or is that just not working?
There is definitely a move towards it, and there is a change of awareness. But sadly, I must say that when we were filling a new position a couple of years ago, and I really made it my business to reach out into all the women's networks that I was aware of, and not just like networks, but just people, women I knew, inviting them, encouraging them to apply. The ratio of men and women applying was really sad. It made me sad. I'm not allowed to say the numbers because these processes are confidential, but I was shocked how few women actually applied for it. And we were invited and auditioned and everything. So there is definitely a desire, and there's an understanding also of these organizations, the public radio. There's a desire to change, and the understanding that there needs to be change, but it just is so slow. Yeah, I wish we could speed it up.
That's really interesting, because I know there's some searches right now, and I did the same thing. I was encouraging some of my peers that, hey, you gotta apply. And a common response that I get is that, oh, no, I'm not good enough. I don't think I can do that. Yeah, it's somewhat puzzling, and it's, well, your empowerment course is on the right track, but it's one of those things we haven't solved yet, haven't we?
Exactly. Mindsets like that, I'm not good enough, or there are so many of these mindsets that can get in the way. This is what we address in these empowerment classes. These mindsets that are keeping women still, and of course, everybody, please forgive me when I make these generalizations of women are like this, men are like that. So I think we can all agree that we have a differentiated or a nuanced view of these things. But when we talk about this topic, sometimes I say things like women this, men that, to really blast these mindsets that keep us maybe in a place where we don't apply for positions like that. But when we talk about empowerment, this is, I think, very important. We can't just have women do the work. We have to do work, but it's a societal thing. And I think it's a very important point to make an empowerment, that it's not just women's work. Mm-hmm. It's the structure and the society. Everybody has to be on board, and I think it'll also happen more quickly. And I do see a quickening of it.
That's a really good point. Yeah, we just had a gathering at the Jazz Now in Munich, and that exact point came up, saying, it can't be a one-way street. It has to come from all sides. We can't put the responsibility on the disadvantaged population of just saying, come do it, but it has to be supported. Yeah. So agreed. All right. So New Dawn Light, flute and vibraphone, more improvisation, composition, fill us in.
Yes, well, this is the three of us story, David and I, and it's from a recording session just a few months ago that we did here in Cologne at a beautiful concert venue. We just played without an audience and recorded here. And again, this is a spontaneous improvisation. And the title, New Dawn Light, really expresses the sort of optimistic, majory kind of feeling that this tune has, and the uplifting quality that I hope you can hear.
I think we can definitely hear that. So New Dawn Light, this is from the upcoming album, soon to be released, Speak Your Truth, featuring my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer on the flute, with vibraphonist David Friedman and Drory Mondlek and that was New Dawn Light, a selection from the upcoming album Speak Your Truth by my guest today, Karolina Strassmayer, who you heard on flute on this one. And we had great conversations about so many things and life. I want to, well, first, putting some well wishes out. Unfortunately, your partner had an accident. You guys going to have some healing stretches here for a minute, right?
Yes.
It's also part of life, but hopefully. What are the plans? What's coming up?
To keep going, moving closer towards real authenticity, and to go deeper into the music and deeper into the present moment with the music and in everything that I do. And returning to the big band. Really, teaching has become something also that I've become very passionate about, teaching saxophone. I also have a very interesting ensemble there that I teach. I proposed that to the university, and they invited me to do it. I call it In the Moment, the Beauty of Flow. So this is an ensemble where it's not a typical repertoire ensemble where we just play through tunes, but where we really explore ways that invite us into the present moment, into the flow, and making music from there.
Karolina, thank you for sharing your time with us today. So this last one that we're going to hear is
This is actually from a recording from earlier this year, and it's just one of the recordings I did with Rainer Böhm and Thomas on piano, and Thomas Stabenow on bass, and Jory Mondlak on drums. Sort of a more traditional jazz quartet setting, and I play the alto on this tune, and it's something in 5/4.
It's very cool, very cool. So to find your music, best go to...
We're on iTunes, you come to our website, all the platforms really, you can find us. And
what's the website address?
My name, karolinastrassmayer.com, or Claro Music. Claro is the name of the group, and that's KLARO music.com. So come visit us.
Stream it often, listen all the time. It's very special stuff. So thanks again, Karolina, for spending the time.
Thank you, Monika. It's my pleasure.
Here's from the album Freescapes with my guest Karolina Strassmayer on the alto, Jory Mondlak on the drums, Rainer Böhm on piano, and Thomas Stabenow on bass. Jazz. My guest today was saxophonist, composer Karolina Strassmayer. You can hear Talking Jazz every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Mondays at 7 p.m. on WETF 105.7 in South Bend, Indiana, or online at jazzradiowetf.org, and Fridays at 8 p.m. on WICR 88.7 Indianapolis. Previous shows are also on my YouTube channel, Monika Herzig, MONIKAHERZIG. Please subscribe to the Talking Jazz playlist. Thank you for listening.